This week on the Views from the Bucket podcast, it's all about you, Coach. We've got Andrew Bartman from USA Baseball here. He is the Director of Coaching Development, and he's going to talk about all the different types of programs USA Baseball has for coaches from new to veteran, plus all of the ways to be a better coach for your team. Let's go.
Welcome to the best seat in the house. It's the Views from the Bucket podcast, where we dive deep into the world of coaching youth baseball. Whether you're a seasoned coach or just starting out, we've got the bases covered. Join us as we bring you the best insights, strategies, and stories from the finest minds in the game. We've got it all right here. So grab a seat on the old bucket and knock it out of the park with Views from the Bucket.
All right, welcome back to Views from the Bucket podcast. I'm Chris Baker, your host, and I am here with Andrew Bartman from USA Baseball. He is the Director of Coaching Development. And Andrew, you are, first of all, welcome, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here, and I know USA Baseball is a busy place to be and busy place to work, but you guys are doing some tremendous things for coaching. So you taking the time to do this for us is huge. Let's talk a little bit about your role to start with USA Baseball. What are you doing right now, and what's kind of your history in baseball?
Yes, of course. Right now, gearing up for our fall and winter season. So I know for baseball folks, summer's a busy time, and especially in our office, same thing with all of our national teams and national team development programs rolling. However, that's my downtime because while everyone else is playing, I can't have a lot of coaches clinics while people are playing, right? Youth and high school baseball. So this is a lot of planning for our fall. I've got to swing up to the Northeast here next week or in 2 weeks. Hit a bunch of those states. We're trying to hit all 50 states with one of our free 2-hour community coaches clinics by the end of 2024. So I need to go hit Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, all that up in the Northeast here soon. And then we have our regional coaches clinics, which we host 4 of those a year in the fall and winter. Those are 2-day events, which we do charge for, but we include meals and a cocktail hour. And day one is a indoor, traditional classroom style PowerPoints with a printed program book clinic. But then day 2, those same coaches who are instructing are on field with local college players as demonstrators. So we use two different styles of learning. So we'll be in Seattle, the Seattle area in September, here at USA Baseball in November, also in Scottsdale, Arizona in November, and in Round Rock, Texas by Austin in December with those. So a lot of planning right now and just lining up good people to present and make sure that we have our ducks in a row to put on great events.
That's a lot of dedication to coaches itself. I mean, USA Baseball is busy with players and everything else too. You've got your teams and everything going on. So let's talk about that a little bit because, you guys have a huge commitment to coaches across the country, coast to coast. Talk to me a little bit about USA Baseball in general, the coaching programs that you do offer and kind of your coaching philosophy for youth baseball coaches.
Absolutely. We offer a vast array of resources for coaches, and it's all free. I say that clinics all the time. It's a bad joke, but it's like, hey, I'm going to say a 4-letter F word all day today, and it's free. So if you and anyone can do it. You do not have to be a resident of the United States. We have a unique relationship with Major League Baseball where we want to, or we work hand in hand with them to help grow the game, and that does not just mean within our domestic borders. So, for example, our virtual coaches clinics, which we started April 4th of 2020, we pivoted very quickly during COVID, started virtual coaches clinics, which I host. We just did our 86th virtual coaches clinic last night. Now we're doing it once a month, but we pivoted quick, and we've had, I want to say, over 12,000 coaches on those from 54 different countries. And that's what was shocking to me, was the amount of countries that would tune in just to get some baseball instruction. So those are part of our community clinic series. We do in person and virtually. We'll do 40 plus in person, free of cost, 2-hour community coaches clinics this year. We'll do 10 virtual coaches clinics also, which are free. And then we archive those on our YouTube channel for anyone to view. We'll do the 4 regional clinics. And that all supports our coaching certification pathway, which there are 3 levels of. It is also free. Level A is 4 courses, can be done completely online. Level B is 8 courses completely online. Level C is 9 courses, plus you have to attend a clinic. So because we're not in every single city and state around the country for our in-person clinics, we continue to do the virtual clinics as well, with more levels of certification potentially coming soon. But yeah, it's all free. It can be found on the app. It can be found at usabdevelops.com, along with our American Development Model, along with our youth baseball coaching manual, our high school baseball coaching manual, and too many other resources for me to even remember off the top of my head. But our education team does a great job. Sarah and Paris, they do a tremendous job of providing quality resources for coaches of all levels. And it ties in, that comment ties into what I said about, what you asked about coaching philosophy. Man, I open every clinic with this. How many of you, this is your first coach's clinic? And usually there's about half the hands. It's our first time having at a coach's clinic. And I'm like, just for starters, this is not Facebook. We are not going to argue about, there's only one way to do things. No, man, as coaches, we should be trying to take little bits and pieces from everyone we come across, and we find what works, and we put those tools in our tool belt. So that way we can be a master carpenter at the end of this thing, right? And we've got as many tools as we need to get through to the kids, because every kid, every player learns differently. There's all those different learning styles. Nicole Bartman, my wife, will tell you that I am not an auditory learner. And that's a tongue in cheek, but it's a serious comment. I'm not great with just listening and retaining. I need to see it, right? I'm a visual learner. I want to see it. And it can be something written down. It can be something just that I see doing a demonstration. But, as coaches, we got to be able to flex to what's going to get the best outcome for the kid, not what's going to be the easiest path for you to take to deliver the information, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That makes huge sense. And that actually leads into my next question for you, which is, we see this, and I'm a coach developer in Ontario, Canada as well. So it's great to hear that there's your courses are available internationally as well, because there's some great stuff there. I think, often a lot of our coaches are doing your safe sport, for example, and doing it through you. Not that we don't have a good one here, but it's just yours is more comprehensive as far as baseball is concerned, right? So we all want to get better as coaches, I would hope, and I hope that the coaches out there watching want to get better. But what would you say when you see these coaches come into your clinics, especially the initial ones? What would you say is the biggest misconception about baseball coaching that you see coaches have when they come in?
I'm trying to think of some of the good questions that they ask, but for youth baseball coaches, and when I say youth, I mean anything under high school, right? Younger than high school, not under than high school. It doesn't matter. In my world, I say, or we actually put on the registration for the clinics, are you a youth recreational coach or a youth competitive coach? And those are two totally different things. Everything being outcome driven is the biggest misconception by those coaches. And they're wanting a tip or a trick. Hey, I've got a kid who does this. How do you fix that? Well, there's not just one drill for everything, right? There's not just a magic pill for it. And it takes baseball's say it's a lot too. Baseball's a crockpot sport in a microwave society. It takes a while. It takes a while to get everything marinating together and to get all the skills that you need to be a good baseball player. You may have someone with a good arm, a light bat. They may be able to run, but they can't field. And it takes a while to marinate all those flavors together to make you a really good baseball player. So I guess the biggest misconception is that there's a quick fix for everything, because there's, I guess, folks on social media that'll tell you they'll increase your velocity by 7 miles an hour in 3 days, and that's not really, that's not really the case. So I guess just trying to create a culture for coaches to where they know that, man, if they just keep those kids involved and engaged for a longer period of time, you'll see those players start to blossom, and we won't lose them to basketball. We won't lose them to soccer. And that kid that is a left-hander that can't quite figure out his body yet may grow up to be a 6'6" lefty that throws 96, but we're never going to know if you only keep him in right field for an entire season.
Exactly. And you see that all the time at the 8U, 9U, 10U, 12U levels, right? Where they're specializing already in positions. It just makes no sense to me, because, your top player at 8U is probably not your top player at 12U. right? And
not at the top player at 16U,
and
the
not
top player at 18,
exactly.
right?
It just changes. It just their bodies change, their skill level changes, the way they marinate, as you say, as a ball player changes. And so there isn't one drill, there isn't one key. And I find it really interesting at usadevelops.com. You guys have a ton of manuals for coaching. And most of them harp on things like health and safety. What was the other one I saw? Developing a positive culture, keeping baseball fun. That's a huge one. Like, I mean, for me as a coach myself at now 12U, but I've taken this team all the way from 8U. If they come back to try out next year, I've done my job, because it means that they're back, right? And they love it.
That's how I end every single clinic. I say, I don't care what your record is. If you have 13 players on your team and they all play baseball next year, and I don't care if it's for you or for somebody else, you did your job. You're 13-0. I say the exact same thing. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think the coaching has changed now, though, about that? I mean, you see the misconception from the coaches you just mentioned is that they just want that magic drill. So I don't know that they think it's changed, but do you think it's changed? Like, is that the focus we need to have now as coaches? You see all these players with taking private lessons somewhere, doing other things that are being instructed. Like, is it now the responsibility of the coach to keep working on the fun, working on the mental side of the game? Yes, of course, we're going to do drills and practices and things like that. But again, as you say, not every drill is going to work for every kid anyway. Can we do a better job as coaches now by focusing more on the mental side of it, the love of the game, things like that?
Yes, I think there can definitely be a healthy balance there. There's, I don't know, any kid that quits a sport, what's the number one thing they blame it on? The coach. They blame it on the coach. They blame it on the coach, right? And it's now some of those, as a coach, I've got my guard up against that, because usually the ones who complain are the ones who weren't in the starting lineup, right? So it's easy to blame somebody else. It's easy to blame the coach. So as a coach, if you're providing a fun and a safe atmosphere for kids where they can learn how to play the game and they can have success, and not only they have success, but you celebrate their success, no matter how big or small, and we don't only focus on the things they did wrong. And I'm not saying that this is participation trophy era type stuff. I'm just saying, yes, we want to correct the mistakes we're making, but we also need to celebrate the wins. And a win for a kid could be if they were 0 for their last 8 and they hit a ball hard, man, that's a win for a kid. You know what I mean? Or they get something to fall. They do, hey, you're 0 for 8, but you got 2 walks and you stole 2 bases. Man, let's not focus on the 0 for 8. We're going to touch on it, but then let's focus on the 2 bases you stole and the 2 walks that you drew. So I think there can be a balance there. And as you know, well, here in the States, there's not really any such thing as balance in anything in life. You can't, people don't think you can agree with, part of both sides of an argument. You have to go one way or the other. And that's really not the case. Baseball is way too complex. There's way too many intricacies for that. So I think if and I know I'm going off topic here, but if coaches can just, learn how to celebrate the wins while also correcting the mistakes or giving players the freedom to make mistakes and learn how to develop. And I'm becoming big. The more and more I hear about it, I hear a lot of coaches. That's the best part of my job is I get to listen to other people coach, right, and teach. And so I can take bits and pieces from them. And the Bernstein principle is becoming so prevalent in what a lot of people do. And I'm becoming a believer of it. That boil it down, it just means that the human body is going to learn to organize itself to complete the task at hand or the goal at hand. So University of Iowa was one of the first ones to do it. They put those big square screens out across our infield. They would tell guys, hit the ball over the screen, right? You got a kid that can't hit the ball hard to the opposite field as a right-hander. You're saying, hey, hit the ball to the right field foul pole. You're not saying elbow up, elbow down, step here, step there, giving them 15 instructions. It's like, hey, here's the end goal. Here's what you want to work towards. And give them the freedom. It might take 7 or 8 swings to get it, but you can see little improvements. Their body's working towards it. When my daughters were learning how to walk, I didn't get down on the ground and tell them right foot, left arm, left foot, right arm, eyes up, do this, pump your knees. No, they saw other people doing it. And then I was the end goal doing this. And their body learned how to organize itself eventually to do it. So how many kids do we say, hey, try this? It doesn't work in 1 round of 5 swings in BP. And then we just say they can't figure it out. It's right. Like they don't get it. They don't get it. No, man, they might get it. You just didn't give them a chance. best story for that, Jerry Weinstein, who's like the godfather of catching, and he's a special assignment catching guy for the Rockies, coached Chuco ball for forever, California guy. Jerry's awesome. And he told a story one time at ABCA convention. He was, roving, going to the different minor league clubs, working with their catchers. And one of the catching coaches there just said, "Man, Jerry, this guy can't get it. This guy cannot get it. I've told him 6 times." And he said, "Well, did you tell him the same way all 6 times?" And that's real. That's real. Did you? Well, that's on you, coach. You're not figuring out how that person learns. And your job as a coach and a teacher is to dig into that player and really find out how to get them to the end result that they want, how to maximize their ability. And it doesn't look the same for everybody.
No, it really doesn't. Every player is different, but I love the screens idea. Hit it over the screen and just let them figure that out, rather than 6 different steps. And we always talk about it with coaches too, in coaching development programs. Try to teach them one thing at a time, but it almost seems like a habit of coaches to just try to teach the whole thing all at once.
Oh, baby, we chop it up and we create the world's most delicious word salad possible, right? We just chop it up, man. No, man, just give them the lettuce first. Then we mix in some cherry tomatoes and some stuff. But we give so much word salad, it's unbelievable. One other thing, like a minor takeaway, I've seen some coaches do, and I love the idea. If you want a low cost way to, maybe you don't have those big screens. Maybe you're hey, I got one batting cage somewhere. Okay, get some different colored string or rope, yellow rope, red rope, purple rope, whatever. And man, in one corner of a cage where you would want guys to hit a ball, put the yellow rope and put a triangle. Take the orange rope and another side of the cage and put a square. Take the purple rope back here and put some other kind of target. And now we're not saying hey, we want to work on hitting the ball opposite field. No, hey, we're playing target practice. Hit the triangle, hit the square, hit the circle, hit the orange one, hit the blue one, hit the red one. And it's something that's easy, fairly cheap, and that can provide some of that external focus, right? And that external goal, hey, okay, this is what I'm trying to do today. And it creates a game for the kids too.
That's a huge takeaway. Because it also simplifies it, right? And that's the thing. You talk about the word salad, the jargon we use as baseball coaches. It's unbelievable what we do to youth baseball players without really even knowing it as coaches, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of this comes down to, and I'm sure you've talked already pieces of this, but we all talk about this. We all know about this internationally, even the American development model. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and why did it get developed in the first place?
Sure. Yeah, I was just walking through with a coach the other day, a friend of mine who's a high school coach that wants to have more development in his youth leagues. So when they get to him, right, that they have a better understanding how to play the game. Yeah, the ADM is a tremendous resource, and it's got there's two parts to the ADM, and there's the scientific research book, right, that's available on our site, usabdevelops.com, that this PE major has not read. But then there's a PDF, flip through with the charts and the graphs, and it shows you everything, lays it out. And, frequency of play versus practice, of games versus practice, and the different stages of development. And holy cow, the United States is completely out of whack with this on a whole, because it's saying that up until age 12 or 14, it should be a discovery phase and a fundamental phase, and not a focus on winning. And that's not the case here. It's that you got 8-year-olds switching teams 2 different times a year, and they're playing 75 games and they're not practicing. It doesn't make any sense. So we're backwards right now as a sport here in the States. But we're just trying to, every coach, every clinic, every group of 10 coaches, 30 coaches, 40 coaches that we find that we can get these resources in front of, then hopefully it has a snowball effect and it can make an impact. So we are, I believe, don't quote me on this, but every organization that is part of the USOPC, the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, needs to have an ADM. And so we were a little bit behind some other sports in it, but now we have that, and it's a great resource for anybody that wants to check it out.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I'm in part of a Facebook group. I just saw somebody comment. It's got 60,000 coaches, I think, from across North America, and one coach was like, I have an 8U team, and I teach them 5 pitches. I don't understand why people only throw fastball change. And I'm like, wait a minute. How is that even? How can you be good at anything if you're doing everything, right? Like it just
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense.
it does
And
not.
it scares me a little bit when you see coaching like that. I mean, not every coach is like that, obviously, and
Right.
that's a I think a big coaching mistake that this person is making. And obviously won't say any names, but it's just like you think about that. Like the kid has to have the chance to learn how to command that fastball and change. They don't have that yet. I mean, why wouldn't you work on that and develop that over time and spend the time doing those things as a not just as a coach, but making sure the players do that before ever reintroducing anything else, and especially additional pitches. Like it's unbelievable what happens.
Yes, absolutely. It's unbelievable what happened. I'm with you, man.
But I mean, that's the
It
reason
makes me
those
laugh.
programs are developed, right? I mean, that's exactly why you have these development programs. And so, I mean, I guess to sort of play off of that, what is the biggest mistake you think you've ever really seen coaches make? And beyond just demanding drills, what do you think the biggest mistake coaches are making? What's the most common, I guess, right now?
Pitcher overuse without question. Pitcher overuse it's prevalent, it's gross, it's borderline child abuse. And kids naturally want to please like the adult that they're around, like their parent. They want to make their parent happy, they want to make their coach happy, they want to make their teacher happy. They naturally have that inclination to do that. Like, yes, I'll do what you tell me, right? Coach says, can you go again today? How's your arm feel? You think a 9-year-old's telling you the truth? Right? You think a 9-year-old really, and then parents are saying that you just got to be tough, man. When I was your age, man, I would throw 7 days in a row and do all this stuff. But kids are working at a higher output right now. And the things that they're being asked to do, that same parent that said they would throw 7 days in a row, yeah, you did it on a sand lot and not always on an inclined mound and not in uniform and not at high intensity, right? So just pitch overuse. So we've got the Pitch Smart program developed by coaches and doctors and science folks, and it's there. We have quite a few compliant organizations in the United States that utilize it, and then there's a lot of other ones that don't. So, and then when a kid jumps team to team and plays for one team on the weekend, another team during the week, it gets kind of lost in the shuffle, right?
Yeah.
Lost in the shuffle of how many pitches are really throwing. So pitcher overuse, just trying to win a tournament. I mean, man, let that kid see how good he can be 6 years from now. But we're not going to know if he has Tommy John when he's 10, or 11.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. And
you should
sometimes you
want
hear
to
even
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, sometimes you hear even parents giving their kids Tommy John just to get it out of the way. Like that these are the crazy things that are happening
Yeah,
in
it's
the game
absurd.
right now.
It's
Right?
absolutely absurd. I challenge all youth coaches at our clinics to, number one, play every single player at a different position throughout the year, right? Like no one should only play the outfield, no one should only play the infield. And then if you're in kid pitch, every kid should pitch at least once. I mean, you should just rotate it and put the focus on development. You might be surprised sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Might catch you by surprise, but at the end of the day, give kids that opportunity to try it out. Like, I mean, and think about youth basketball. Do we have set positions, guard, forward, center? No, they just go out there and they play, right? Some of that in youth football, but like youth basketball, they don't. Soccer, they don't as much. They just go play. And baseball, we just refuse to modify our game for young athletes. And I don't understand why we don't. While I'm on the soapbox and I got an audience here, man, if I was the czar of baseball for a day, 8 and under, we would not have outfields.
Well, that's
How many
interesting.
how many balls go in the outfield?
That's true. Yeah, that's a good
Not
point.
many, right? So instead of having 3 or 4 outfielders out there, you take those kids from 2 different teams and you make a third team, and you make a fourth team, and you make another team, and now all of a sudden everybody's handling the ball more, everybody's getting more at bats, everybody's running the bases more. Put a couple adults out there if you want to, doesn't matter. There are a couple leagues too here in the States that are doing some cool stuff in terms of recreational baseball, not competitive travel, whatever. I think it's 6U, 7U, 8U, maybe even 9U. When it's coach pitch, if you and I were the head coaches of 2 teams that were playing each other and we each had an assistant coach, it's not me versus you. I'm going to be out being the pitcher the whole game. You are going to be in the field, assisting the fielders the whole game, put them in the right positions, coaching them, teaching them. My assistant coach is going to be the all-time offensive assistant coach. He's going to go dugout to dugout and make sure they're learning things while they're in the dugout and they're in the right batting order. And then your assistant's going to be doing something else. And it takes away from me trying to beat you, right? So I'm going to keep all my guys in the bet. This kid's going to play first base the whole game and pitch the whole game. Oh man, it's about developing the two teams and working together to make them better baseball players. I think it's really, really interesting.
I think that's interesting too. I love that. It's huge development for the players, and that's what we have. Even in our league here, it starts at 8U, but because it's travel, but it is one of those philosophies where we see teams that don't do this, and our philosophy is play everybody everywhere, especially at 8U,
Right.
all the way up to basically 12, 13U. Then at that point, they have the ability to play everywhere. And they have, and yeah, we lose a lot. I mean, that is like from a score perspective, we lose, but we learn a lot too, right? So all the way up to those levels. And then, but once they get to say 12U, 13U in our program, because everybody can play everywhere, we start to win, and we start to win a lot, right? But it isn't even that important anymore to the players because they just feel good about playing well at their positions. They know they can play multiple positions. And so eventually they still get to that winning mode anyway, don't they? They just get that extra better development in all the different positions.
Correct. I think it's great. And it's what do you prioritize at what age? And so like you go into that American Development Model, the ADM, it shows what you hopefully should be prioritizing, right? From age to age,
Exactly.
from discovery on through competition. So yeah, I think it's a great thing that you all are doing that. I wish more people would. So
Yeah.
can you give up your short-term wants of tournament championships in order to get some long-term development and some long-term success?
Exactly. And all of that learning, right? And let's talk about that for second last question for you here. And it's about continuous learning for coaches. So a lot of times we find that coaches, you talk to any coach and they're like, oh, I finally got my courses done, or I got my development done,
Right.
and I'm done.
Check the box.
Check the box. I've got my certification. I'm done. Well, that's not true, is it? I mean, for coaches, it's really, we'll talk about the importance from a USA baseball perspective. What's your mindset around continuous development for coaches?
Lifelong learners. I mean, a lot of things change, and until someone bats 1,000 and has a 0 ERA for their career, then it's, you should always be trying to get better. Now it's a slippery slope, and there's some caveats to that. I've played for a coach before where it was, we go through the whole fall in college, and then that coach went to the ABCA, the American Baseball Coaches Association convention, heard all these speakers, comes back, we're changing the way we do everything. There's got to be some caveats to it, but you should stay curious, and you should be wanting to just learn and hear things from different people. And man, there's some things that coaches would say that to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but then I hear someone else say it and just flip it in a different way, and all of a sudden it clicked a light bulb with me, right? And if you just stay in your tunnel, and if you just stay in your silo and your, what's it called, an echo chamber, where everybody's just saying the exact same thing, but you're on a treadmill. You're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything, right? So try to learn from other people. And oh my goodness, that person teaches rotational hitting instead of directional. I can't listen. No, listen to, who knows? you might pick up on something. You don't have to be a flag waver or a flag bearer for like a certain way to teach pitching or hitting or whatever. And we don't need to take sides, man. We just like, the movie Semi-Pro? Basketball movie? Man, I'm Jackie Moon. Everybody love everybody. Let's just hang out. Let's talk baseball, and let's learn from each other. There might be little tidbits that you take away from all these different people, and that turns into your coaching philosophy.
Yeah.
Your coaching philosophy is not chiseled in stone. It's written in pencil, and it's on paper, or you can hit the delete button and you can retype it, but you've got to be able to have that open mind to where we can learn from everybody. And the funniest thing to me is this. When you look at levels of baseball, and it puts everything into levels, right? Pro, D1, D2, NAI, JUCO, high school, but youth. Man, there are some really, really good, really sharp youth baseball coaches who could coach circles around some guys I know that coach at Division I schools.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all a matter of some choices that were made. Did you choose to go into this? You choose to go into that. You choose to make it a career. You choose to not to, but you can still have an impact. And man, we get caught up on being shirt snobs. And I have a hard time with it. I coached youth baseball. I coached Legion ball. I coached junior college. I was D3 head coach, NAI head coach before I went to the ABCA. And I forget sometimes, like I try to get as many speakers as I can for my events. And then someone one time said, well, how come you're not giving a session? Well, you don't want to hear me talk. They're like, you're the director of coaching for USA Baseball. We want to hear you talk. I'm like, I'm nobody, but like, it's all about the shirt, right? And so people become shirt snobs. They're like, well, if this is what the guy from Vanderbilt teaches, it must be good. And I said, well, what he teaches works for like high performance athletes. You don't have high performance athletes, right? So
Right.
But if some guys are able to say it and teach it to where it works for everybody, so it's just a matter of having that open mind. And some of the best, I guess, learners you'll find are guys that coach at really high levels. Tim Corbin, head coach of Vanderbilt. Tim Corbin sits in the front row of every ABCA session and takes notes. This guy's won multiple national titles. He has nothing to prove to anybody. He will sit and learn from a high school coach that's talking. He'll learn from a youth coach that's talking. But then we've got youth coaches and travel coaches who like stick their nose up and say they got it all figured out. They've got the secret sauce to everything, right?
Yeah.
So like the minute that you can take that mask off and say like, hey, I can learn something from everybody and anybody, man, you're going to see, your eyes are going to be open. You're going to have a lot more success. So that's what I encourage everybody to do is, man, it doesn't matter what shirt you're wearing, doesn't matter what hat you're wearing, doesn't matter what level you coach at. You've got value to give. And then you've also there's a lot of people out there with value for you to take, and just make sure that got your eyes open, because you never know who's you're going to cross paths with.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I mean, when I'm doing these coach development courses, some of them are 2 hours, some of them are up to 4 hours in some cases. And you get these guys that join these things, even if they're online, and they're griping already from minute one that they have to be there for 4 hours, or they have to be there for 2 hours, or whatever. Or during it, if it's an online session, they're watching the ball game on TV, they're not really paying attention, those types of things, to what the other coaches are saying. And these are all meant to be interactive. These are all meant to be for you. And I always now preface those courses to say, this is your chance to talk 4 hours of the game you love. Right? Like, this is your chance to learn about the game you love. Don't look at this as a chore that you're just getting a certification from, or whatever, or you're renewing your certification, whatever it may be. Look at it as a chance to talk to other coaches about what they're doing, learn, as you say, learn from everybody else. Right. And if you look at it that way, you're going to enjoy the conversation. You're going to wish it was 6 hours long. Right. But if you look at it as, oh, I have to do this because my association, my travel ball team, or whatever it is making me do this, then you're going to hate it automatically, and you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not even listen to anything that anybody's saying, right?
Absolutely. So, I mean, if it's the same stuff we would tell our kids to do, right? Or our players.
I know.
Like,
it's
already here, like, let's just get this done. But when it comes to us, it's different. It's I crack all the time guys that show up late to a coach's clinic, and I'm like, man, you'd be ripping your kids if they're late to practice right now.
That's true. That's a good point.
But when it's you, I guess it's different. So yes,
that's right. Well, Andrew, this has been awesome. I know I have only a certain amount of time with you today. I appreciate the time that you took. Any final messages for coaches about coaching in general, and staying positive, and staying, keeping it positive for their kids, and keeping the love of the game?
Absolutely. If you're a coach, you need to have a servant leader's heart, and that means that you're there to serve your players. They are not there to serve your ego. They are not there to serve your win and loss record. You're there to serve them, as a coach, as a mentor, as someone who should be keeping them safe, should be keeping it fun, should have a great learning environment, and then we should be celebrating success, right? So don't take that lightly. You're a leader of people anytime that you're at that field. And I guess a personal side to this is, I referenced earlier, my wife and I have 2 daughters. Yeah, I got the coach's curse. Got 2 daughters, and then we've also been foster parents, and so we've had like 30 some different foster placements, some for short term, some for long term. And the reason I bring it up is kids would come into our home with different looks, and you're like, well, that kid doesn't look like that they've got a terrible home life. And there's other ones that you're like, yeah, I can see why this kid got taken away, but what I want to reference that to coaching is that you don't know what's going on in that kid's head, in that kid's house. May look good on the surface, may not be good. So when you have them for an hour and a half, twice a week, whatever it is, to give them your best, because that might be the best hour of that kid's week. That might be the best 2 hours of that kid's month. You have no idea. And I'm not saying that you need to dive into every kid's personal situation, but just if you're giving them your best, you don't have to worry about if it's not right. And then 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're going to see that same kid, and that kid's going to say, man, you have no idea how much the atmosphere you had there and you as a person got me through X, Y, and Z. Right. I pray that never happens to anybody, but it's going to, right? It's going to happen. And
Absolutely.
just giving them your best will eliminate any doubts that you may have later on. So make sure you're giving them their best, and you're coming from a place of a servant's heart and not an ego heart.
Great final words. That's amazing. Those might be the best final words we've had on the podcast yet. So I appreciate that, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast and for sharing so many informational nuggets with us. I really, really appreciate your time.
You got it. Thanks for having me. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. Very simple. Andrew Bartman, Bartman at usabaseball.com, or I'm on Facebook and X, Twitter, whatever it is, and Instagram. So if you want to reach out, have any questions, happy to help you. That's my job. I'm here to help coaches.
Perfect. For those watching, we'll make sure that's on the screen here as well. For those listening, we'll put it in the description in the on the podcast platforms. Andrew, thank you so much. For Andrew Bartman, I'm Chris Baker. Thank you so much for joining Views from the Bucket podcast this week. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks for being here on this episode of Views from the Bucket. We hope you've gained some valuable curveballs of wisdom and that they'll help you on your coaching journey. Remember, the diamond is where we shape not just players, but young lives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show so that we can continue bringing you the best in the world of coaching. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover or a guest you'd love to hear from, drop us a line. We're all about helping you become the best coach you can be. Until next time, keep that bucket of knowledge and passion overflowing, and keep inspiring young ball players to be the leaders of the future. Play ball.